Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Kelly Nichol, President of IOSH, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to the second in this three-part series on sustainability in action. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Ahmed El-Idrisi, the HSE, ESG and Sustainability Manager with Qatar Free Zones Authority. I thought I wore a lot of hats. He's a chief sustainability officer. Ahmed has stood at the forefront of integrating health and safety and environmental management with sustainable development goals for over 28 years. He's joining us from Qatar to discuss the global challenges of sustainability in OSH. So welcome, Ahmed. It is great to have you. I want to start things off before you share your presentation. I'd like to start things off by considering the role of sustainability in OSH. And in particular, if we consider the Gulf Cooperation Council's exposure to extreme climate conditions and rapid industrial development. So how do you see the OSH role evolving within the region?
Thank you very much, Kelly, and I'm really happy and privileged, to be here today and to be back to IOSH platform because I used to work for the executive committee as the chair for IOSH Qatar branch for nearly around 5 years, and now I'm back. I'm so happy to be here with you. Talking about the sustainability role OSH in the GCC, as all of us know that GCC is one of the vulnerable kind of geographical parts of the world, when it comes to sustainability and to climate change and these kind of things. We cannot separate the OSH from sustainability when it comes to this. It's a critical part because we know that climate change is a reality today. Climate change is impacting us all over. Climate change is making certain parts of the world like more vulnerable than others, like for example the GCC context. As example, we're witnessing an increase of temperature in the last 10 years of 1.2 degrees already. We are witnessing an increase of humidity, relative humidity of an average of 10% in the last 10 years. So that's a kind of an indication, for us that something serious is happening, something serious is coming, and we need to ensure that we are on top of it. We are taking all the possible precautions, to ensure that people are safe, people are healthy, and we know the interconnectivity of issues like heat, humidity, these kind of extreme weather conditions, to health and safety of the employees. In the GCC, yes.
Absolutely. Here in the UK, was it last summer, we saw 40-degree heat, which is nothing for you guys over in the Middle East, but is phenomenal up here. We're seeing, an increase in flash floods. We're seeing an increase in not just the heat, but the extreme weather. And it's absolutely having an impact on our workers as well. Definitely.
Absolutely. And like this kind of 40 degrees here for us is like, it's funny, it's not that serious, we are talking about 50 plus, we are talking about relative humidity that is like 80% or something like that. So this is a kind of a very serious extreme weather conditions that is actually impacting the way we do everything, not only our health and safety things, but the way that we do business, the way that we do our kind of day-to-day things. So that's why I think it's very serious for the GCC countries. It's very crucial that we need to be on top of it. It's very crucial that we need to work to start today, not tomorrow, to take all the possible kind of precautions. And who will do that? It's us. It's the OSH professionals and others, So there is a role on our shoulders that we need to make sure that we are taking that kind of role, and then we push forward into more kind of sustainable future for the generation to come.
I think that's entirely fair, and I think that's the difficulty, isn't it? We're seeing, people who have comorbidities, people who are ill already, are massively impacted by heat and humidity. I was in I was in Dubai in January. It was, everybody else is practically cold. I'm nice and toasty. I was in Riyadh at the beginning of May, and we were literally having the conversation with the Minister of Public Health around the increase of heat and the amount of work that they're doing, the amount of construction work that's happening over there, which is outdoors, and how on earth you continue to manage that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's another factor because still the GCC is developing and
Mm,
still there is a lot of infrastructure work that's happening.
yeah.
And this is one of the kind of contributing factor as well into all what we are doing, because apart from issues related like to this fossil fuel based kind of economies and,
Mm,
like the emissions, all these kind of things that are contributing to the climate change itself, then there are other things that the massive construction that's happening, the massive kind of emission that are coming from from construction sites, from those kind of fleets that they are using, to bring materials, raw materials, all this kind of stuff into construction sites. So all
mm.
this is a call for us, that we need to take some actions and we need to push things forward.
And like you said, health and safety professionals, we absolutely and utterly have a massive part to play in this, don't we? Um, so you've been at the forefront of ESG and sustainability transformation within Qatar. So can you share how integrating ESG into our safety practices is shifting that mindset and expectations for leadership across the GCC?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love ESG, and ESG is something that I have been working to push this agenda for ESG for quite a long time. The change that I have witnessed when this is because ESG came very recent, compared to like sustainability concept and this kind
Mm,
of, and even to OSH concepts. So ESG is a kind of a magic word nowadays because it's making the change,
yeah.
it's making things happening. Why? Because it's not because people they of a sudden they start loving sustainability or OSH or these kind of things, but because the scheme has been regulated in lots of parts of the world,
Mhm.
because the scheme is integrating the E, S, and G together. So to be in compliance with any of the requirements of the ESG, whether the European or the other ones, you need to ensure that you have a proper setup in place. The ESG, the G part of the ESG is holding those people who are sitting at the top, like the board of directors of organization, they are holding them accountable. The ESG is putting kind of conditions that if you want to make sure that you have a good ESG in place and you have a good ESG disclosures, you need to make sure that the compensation of those people who are sitting on top of the organization is tied into their performance, into the performance of the organization. You cannot come
Yeah,
at the end of the year and say that, you know what, we want to compensate the board of directors of like two or three fatalities within that organization. It does not work.
exactly.
It doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's one of the big kind of shifts and reasons why those people who are sitting on top, they are now very, very, very cautious and focusing into the performance of the organization that they are sitting on top of it.
Mm,
They are making sure that even those people who are recruited, starting from the CEO, going down, into like the bottom of that organization, they need to ensure that those people are competent enough to do the job that they have been allotted to do. Otherwise, it will screw the whole kind of the organization. ESG,
absolutely.
yes. So ESG
Absolutely.
is tied to access to fund because
Mm,
nowadays organizations, if they don't have good performance into their ESG and they do not have a good rating into the ESG reporting, they will not have access to fund. ESG, if they don't have a good ratings on their ESG, they will not be listed into the stock exchange. They will not be competitive in the market. So,
mm,
so that's why companies nowadays, they are eager to ensure that they have a proper setup in place. And as part of the S part in the ESG comes health and safety, the
of
health and
course.
safety of the employees, the engagement of the stakeholders, all these kind of things comes as part of that holistic picture of the ESG implementation. That's why ESG is making the change. That's why ESG
Mm.
is having that kind of magic that we were looking into for the last kind of 10 years or something.
I think it's a really interesting way of doing it, isn't it? Is
Yeah,
actually let's make it financially
Exactly.
important for people to make sure that they are looking after, because
Yes.
we're all sitting on this webinar knowing that looking after our people and making sure that nobody dies at work is absolutely a moral imperative for every single one of us, but for an
Yes.
awful lot of people it's still not, and hitting them in that bottom line is a really effective way of doing it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just before you start your presentation, if anybody has any questions for Ahmed or myself as we're going through, please make use of the Q&A rather than the chat, and we will come to as many of those as we can after your presentation. But over to you, Ahmed.
Okay, so let me take you through the journey of this. I'm kind of going. I will try to go quickly through. I'm not going to dive deep because of the time. However, there are like kind of important concepts and things that I would like to share in this presentation, and that's why I insisted to have like some slides so that people they understand the concept behind what we are talking about. So the presentation mainly will talk about the GCC climate vulnerability. It will talk about enhancing OSH through sustainability. It will talk about the climate change impacts on workers, repositioning OSH, climate change impacts, the GCC, and then a call for action. So this is the kind of a quick one on how do we bridge the gap, if we might call it, between the conventional way that we are doing things, and then between these kind of things that we are facing today in terms of climate change, because we do have like massive risk that are coming or that we are facing nowadays, as a result of climate change, and we need to make sure that we are embedding all these kind of risks into our sustainability kind of perspectives, whenever we talk about sustainability and bringing sustainability and OSH together. So I love to have some sort of participation, and this is one of the first one. Okay, I start getting some answers even without. So, what does come to your mind whenever we talk about sustainability in occupational safety and health? Climate, definitely, it's one of the big things. Waste, yes. Protection, green, climate. It's coming like more energy. Climate and green kind of interchanging. Yes. Climate again. So I think you can still keep voting, but for now, I think I will stop here and then go forward. Yes, climate, energy, all these kind of things are kind of connected, because even if you look at the climate change that we are talking about these days, people they start the first thing that pops into your mind is the change in temperature, the increase in temperature. So this increase in temperature, it's coming as a result of different factors. Energy is one of the big ones there, if we go back into the greenhouse gases and the carbon footprint and these kind of things. This is just, as I said before, that this is showing the increase of the temperature in the last decade or the last 10 years, starting 2014 to 2024. So we are witnessing a kind of a very serious, because imagine in 10 years you have, like, for example, if you take like the Qatar's status, we have an increase of 1.2 degrees in the last 10 years. That is serious. That is something really big that people they should stop and then start talking and then start taking whatever measure that need to be taken, to address this issue. It's not only Qatar, but if you look at all GCC countries, they are more or less, taking the same kind of trend in the increase of temperature. And this is impacting everything. It's impacting the workers, it's impacting the way that we do our business, the day to day, it's impacting the climate, it's impacting the infrastructure that we have, and so forth. The next slide is showing the humidity, the relative humidity. Yeah, again, we are having the same kind of phenomena, an increase of almost around 10% in the relative humidity in the last 10 years. This is as well. And if we combine, because at the end of the day, we know that nowadays we are using the heat index. And in that heat index, if we combine these two factors together, then it really makes things looks very serious, when it comes to climate change, and then the consequences of the climate change that we might have as a result. So this is like the same, but the results like a 10 degrees in humidity increase, and then 10%, sorry, and 1.2 to 1.5 degrees increase in temperature. And then the combined heat index value is exceeding 55 degrees during the peak hours of summer. So in terms of the economics and the losses, because I know that sometimes when you start talking to people and to businessmen and to investors, this is the language that they hear. And in their language, you can see clearly that these are the losses that we are going to face in terms of like climate change and these kind of things that should come or that we are start already experiencing. Like for example, if we take like the Middle East or the GCC countries, we are number two into losses. So losses are expected to hit around 25% at the 3.2 degrees Celsius. And as I said before, that if today we are talking about 1.2 degrees, then that 3.2 degrees is not that far from us, if we take that kind of measure. So economic losses are massive, are coming, if we don't take the issue seriously. Countries now, they are coming every year as part of the COP gatherings, to discuss the climate change agreement, the Paris Agreement, and then every year they come, they put their commitments on the table. But actually, there are lots of issues because people, they are not on the same kind of page, they are not on the same level of commitment. And this is really impacting. And climate change is something that even if you are not doing something bad to climate, or if you are not emitting, it will hit you, it will come to you. So this is one of the very serious kind of situation that we are having these days. So how do we adapt the OSH for a changing world? Because at the end of the day, all these kind of things that I have mentioned, it's impacting the health and safety of the employees, of the people, regardless of the others. If we just take health and safety of the workers that we have within the GCC countries, they are impacted massively with the increase of the degrees in temperature. And as I said, if we just go back into the regulatory scheme, for example, the regulations has been changed because we have a ban hours for working outdoor during the peak hours in summer, starting June until September. So they have changed these ban hours. They have expanded the ban hours last year, and this is basically as a result of the change that we are facing on the climate. So we need to ensure that we are addressing the environmental issues, the environmental stresses that we are having whenever we are talking about OSH. We need to ensure that we are incorporating these environmental stresses into the risk assessment. One of the common things that we do at workplaces as OSH professionals is to look into the risk that we have, at the workplace, and the specific risk for that job. Nowadays, we are required to include all these kind of risks that are coming from the climate, from the changing in the weather, from the changing of these kind of things into our consideration whenever we talk, because it's not, and whenever we do that kind of risk assessment, because it's not only about the physical risk that we face, at the workplaces. It's about other risks that we need to consider. The promotion of multiculturalism. We know that whenever it comes to the GCC, we have multicultural kind of workforce. We have, like you go into a project here with the 1,000 workers, and you will find maybe those 1,000, they are coming back of a different 15 to 20 nationalities with a different kind of backgrounds and cultures. And these are things that we need to consider. Whenever we consider the risk assessment and these kind of things, those people who are coming from different culture, they have different perceptions into risk. And we need to ensure that we have some sort of standardization of the risk perception within that. So we need to make sure that people, they fully understand, they fully perceive the risk as is. I don't want to go into a work site, and we have had experienced this before in the GCC, where you go there and then when you start talking to those workers, they start give you like kind of feedback on their perception of the risk that they are having, and you will find somebody will telling you that this risk is high, another body will come and tell you that the risk is medium or low. And this is basically because of that culture kind of background. The integration of sustainability, we need to ensure that sustainability is part of what we do. We need to ensure that we are integrating sustainability in the way we do business. So how do we enhance the OSH practice through sustainability? We need to ensure that we are shifting from compliance to a proactive risk management. Because now people in most of the cases, whenever they think of health and safety, they think of that compliance. We just want to comply. We just want to tick the box. So for us to move forward into more kind of sustainable practice, we need to ensure that we are considering sustainability, we are considering environment and environmental stresses into our practice. The climate risk, addressing the challenge that we are facing from harsh climates, worker protection, ensure that safety and well-being of workers are part of that journey that we are taking. Because at the end of the day, whenever we talk about safety, whenever we talk about well-being, what well-being are you talking about if we are experiencing this kind of climate weather stress that those people are facing? So we need to ensure that we are embedding this into the well-being of our workforce, and then we need to ensure that we are expanding, stretching out to the communities. We have to engage communities as one of the stakeholders into what we do. And then this consequently will take us into more stable kind of economic stability and so forth. So comparing the different models, the old model is more kind of reactive, incident based kind of model, cost driven matrix, because whenever we start talking about controls, precautions at workplaces, people they start weighing it and they saying that, okay, shall we or can we have options that are less kind of costly into these kind of controls and so forth. And then this box ticking compliance practice that we do have. I'm seeing up to today, people are celebrating that zero incident kind of things. So I would like to see more kind of shifting towards celebrating having a holistic culture for health and safety in workplaces, rather than to celebrate and to enjoy having a zero incident or zero accident in a month or a year or something. So we need to have that kind of shift. I don't want like this kind of zero to jeopardize, the whole kind of picture that we are looking at whenever it comes to health and safety performance. We are looking into culture. We are looking into embedding these kind of things. I want safety to be there at workplace, at your home, at the road, at everything. I want people to think all over, whoever is convinced with this health and safety and sustainability kind of things, we need that kind of culture to be all over. The new model that we are pushing forward to is a leadership-driven culture, a culture that is coming and going at the top of the organization of that pyramid, and then going down from there, like to see the actual commitment. I don't want to go to a CEO of the organization to discuss controls for workplace health and safety, and then he start discussing the costing of these kind of things. I want this person to lead into that. I want him to take, the approach to say that, what, if you are coming with these kind of controls, I want to go beyond what you are proposing. Is there anything that we can do more to ensure that our workplace is more safer for our workforces? This is what we are looking for and what we need. An ESG aligned reporting system. And as I said when we started, that ESG is becoming critical. It's becoming a requirement, a regulated kind of scheme. So embedding health and safety into this and aligning our reporting and bringing all these kind of things and being more transparent in our reporting, that is something that we need, for health and safety. And then the risk foresight focus as well is very critical to this. Overcoming the climate domism. So the domism is a new kind of thing that are coming, like whenever we start talking to people about climate and climate change and so lots of people, they will come and tell you that, what has happened has happened. Why are you bothering yourself? There is nothing that we can do. No, there is a lot that we can do today. Yes, there is a demic. We are facing lots of things and lots of challenges, but we can make a change. We can do lots of things. If we make a move today, we can make a kind of a very meaning interventions, into the way that we do these kind of things. So talking about Qatar, I remember Kelly was asking about the Qatar kind of things, and so Qatar, I believe that Qatar, they are on the right direction, taking the right kind of tools, into the implementation. They have Qatar, they have come up with the National Development Strategy version number 3, and that National Development Strategy is embedding all issues that are related to sustainability, health and safety, ESG, all these kind of things are with a very clear targets and timelines in that National Development Strategy. So everything is cascaded from the top. Whenever we talk about these kind of things, it's cascading from the top in Qatar here. Stakeholder collaboration is there, so we are focusing a lot into bringing everybody, we do not want to exclude any of the stakeholders, whenever we talk about health and safety or sustainability or ESG or even the business. And then the legal maturity of these kind of systems. So now they are talking even about regulating ESG in the state of Qatar as part of that journey. So what are the impacts of climate change to the worker safety? So we have the heat that we have talked about, like these kind of extreme heat waves that we are facing, the extreme weather conditions that are disrupting our infrastructure. It's impacting the health and safety, the air pollution it's one of the big things. As I said before, when I started, I said construction. There are lots of emissions, there are lots of dust that are coming from the construction activities, and that's impacting the air quality, and then consequently it's impacting the health of those people who are involved into that. Vector diseases as well, shifting into these kind of geographical health risks, and so then we have lots of diseases that are coming as a result of the climate change, and then the stress, and that's impacting the well-being of workers and the workforce into their mental health and these kind of things. So these are like the kind of the top things that we need to think of whenever we talk about the impacts of climate change and these kind of things into the workers' health and safety. So heat and humidity, as we all know, start impacting workers, starting from heat exhaustion, going up into heat strokes and these kind of things, which is very extreme. And we are facing these kind of situations nowadays, due to the increase of temperature and to the compound effect of temperature and humidity together. And then we have the humidity that is impairing the cooling, because we know that our bodies automatically, when the temperature goes up, then it start doing this kind of cooling kind of stuff. But humidity is impairing that kind of thing to our bodies, and this exacerbate to the heat effects to our bodies. Then we have the dehydration and the the consequences of dehydration. We have the respiratory issues that we are facing nowadays, and we have the physical performance due to this kind of conditions of heat and so. So the impacts the same. It's heat-related health issues. It's reduced performance, because we know that when people are exposed to this kind of situation, they cannot. Infrastructure, the degradation that we are facing into the infrastructure, because we know that humidity, heat, they start working on decaying even our infrastructure that we have. The occupational injuries, it's increasing because of this condition that we are facing. Confined spaces are kind of experiencing more kind of conditions due to increased heat, because we know that heat, even in confined spaces, got trapped, the humidity, and then it start impacting people, whenever they go into these kind of things. And then there is a need for an advanced safety measures that need to be taken, to improve the situation that we are having. What are the current heat mitigation measures that we are having in the GCC? So the work rest protocols, as I said, and it's a regulated scheme in all GCC countries. They have midday work bans. They have regulated schemes whereby heat rest sheets are mandatory to be there, for workers so that they can take that kind of stuff. We have tailored part of the way that we do our jobs so that it can accommodate these kind of situations. Like, for example, one of the projects that I work for, we were having workers, pulling fiber optic cables, in outdoor. And what we did, and that was an initiative that I drive at that time. So I proposed to have like a mobile trucks or mobile units that are air conditioned, they're cooled with all the facilities like water and everything. And we start moving because those workers, they were moving, pulling these cables, from location to location, and they can move like on a daily basis, maybe 5-6 kilometers. And to cover this area, we said, instead of like installing rest areas, like that are suitable for them in different locations, it's better to bring these mobile units, and then the mobile units were moving, with those workers, and then the mobile units were fully equipped with a kitchen, with a toilet, with an air-conditioned rest area, with all these kind of things where they can take their rest breaks and these kind of things. Increased investment into worker accommodations. We are seeing lots of improvement into the standards of the accommodations for workers, and that's kind of helping as well. And focus on the monitoring. So monitoring as well is the big thing, and we do have even some organizations here in the GCC that they're using IoT to ensure that they are having proper kind of monitoring for the heat, for the temperature, for the dust, for all these kind of things that can impact workers into that. So this is the second question that I have. If you can scan and answer it, what is the biggest barriers to integrating sustainability within OSH in your organization? From what you have heard from me, what do you think out of these options that I'm giving? Is it the lack of leadership, or like the buy-in of the leadership is not there, or is it regulatory kind of gaps, or is it a budget constraint, or cultural and communication issues? Okay, so leadership, budget, communication, culture, but it looks like leadership is coming the top. Okay, budget, culture. So if we compare these kind of results with what I have said earlier, the leadership is critical, So whenever we want to drive these kind of things, then we need to ensure that we have leadership, driving this from the top bottom. So the regulatory gaps, as I stated as well before, that there is you will see some regulatory kind of issues, when you come into this part of the world, mainly the harmonization of standards among, because all GCC, they are facing more or less the same kind of conditions. So what I would love to see is more kind of harmonization of these standards across, so that even countries, they can have like a kind of a unified, because now if we talk about like the European Union, they have standards, coming across all European Union countries. So we want to see the same coming here into the GCC countries, that yes, we are facing these challenges where we want to adopt these kind of things. Let us go for it all together, and have this kind of standards across. Opportunities for wide collaboration platforms when it comes to these kind of things, sharing of success stories, because I know that some of the GCC, they have went like they took like more kind of steps than others, and so forth. So integration of OSH into the Qatar kind of setup. So if we start from the bottom, you have like ensuring safe and health workplaces. It's already there. Worker welfare standards and conditions, they are more or less there. And then the transparent policies, including worker committees, and so it has been regulated now. ESG reporting, it's coming. It has already started as a voluntary scheme, but it's coming. The integration of these international standards like the ISO standards, ISO 45001. And then we have this issue of work dynamics. And work dynamics is one of the issues that we have, like expatriate percentage is very high, when it comes to this part of the world. The cultural differences is impacting the way that we do our business and the way that they think of the risk when it comes to health and safety, and then the inclusivity. We need to make sure that we are not excluding anyone. Everybody should be part of that journey that we have. Bridging this communication issue, we have developed lots of ways, that people they can use, when it comes to this. And I love this one at the right hand, the top right hand, where some organization they are putting these kind of charts to monitor and to inform the workforce that now we are at this heat index, and this is what you need to do immediately. Stop work, go to shelter, drink more water, all these kind of things. So this is really one of the kind of good practices that I have seen. This is the announcement that they make on the banning of outdoor working hours. And then you will see this very common as well, the multilingual kind of resources that they have, because as I said, 10 or 15 different culture, different nationalities, different languages. We need to make sure that we have a standard across the peer network. We need to make sure that we are promoting safety across these kind of peer networks, because people commonly they copy from each other. So whenever we have this in place, then it helps a lot in communication, in improving the communication, and then using visual aids, to push that agenda forward. Repositioning OSH from compliance to strategic foresight. So we need to change the mindset. We need to move from that compliance mindset into the strategic foresight by ensuring that we are embedding the culture, the health and safety culture into the workplace. We are embedding sustainability as part of what we do. Sustainability, we need to ensure that we are using sustainability as a catalyst. So we need to move from the reactive OSH measures that we have now, like incident rates and all these kind of things, into more kind of proactive OSH culture that embeds sustainability, embeds well-being, embeds all these kind of things into the culture. The framework that we have, as I said before, it's an integrated framework that embed all these kind of OSH into the practices that we have into the state of Qatar. Innovative ways. Innovation is one of the things that we need to make use of. It's there, and we need to make sure that we are embedding it, and to make it sustainable. Nowadays, we are seeing more kind of rest areas coming with solar panels, so providing all these kind of conditions or air conditioning for these shelters using solar. Even in the monitoring part of it, solar is there. We have monitoring stations now installed in Qatar Free Zone that are 100% working on solar. The digital safety, the tracking use of IoT, Internet of Things in these monitoring units or wearable things that we have, and then involving community in the health and safety drills that we do. Call for action. As I said, we need to move from the reactive into the more kind of proactive, more kind of leader led kind of OSH practice into this. We need to make sure that we are including the innovation, including IoT, inclusion of all stakeholders, more alignment towards the ESG kind of things. So this is my last kind of poll, and then I have maybe one or two slides if the time allows. We'll go through it. So if you can scan the QR code. What is the one shift that you will bring back to your organization after today's presentation? Or what is the one shift that you will be thinking of after today's presentation? Or how can we embed sustainability?
I think that some people might have accidentally put their names in rather
Yes,
than.
yes. But good, maybe they want to make their names like more kind of so fresh enthusiasm. Yes, definitely.
We've got a couple coming through on the chat as well, so like get involved
Okay.
in our leadership and that kind of thing as well, which is really nice.
Yes. And there is a very interesting thing, Kelly, I would like to share as well, that
Mm.
one of the big changes that I managed to make trying to engage with leadership is all the time whenever I want to discuss anything with the leadership, like CEOs and those people who are sitting on top, that I'm looking for a decision from their side, apart from trying to make the data or information that I'm using, to let them take that decision more kind
Mm.
of easy and understandable for them. Every time I think of this question of answering their question, because all the time they will be thinking of this question in their head, what's in it for me?
Yes.
Why shall I take that kind of decision?
Mm.
So all the time, whenever I am staying in front of them, I start thinking of, okay, what's in it for this CEO, to push him to take that kind of decision.
Mm.
And then I start addressing that, if he is more towards like the costing and this kind of thing, then I will focus more on the costing, and
Yeah.
then I will make sure that I address that question that yes,
Mm.
you are going to get lots of benefits out of this.
And then talk, like talking to your head of people, the language that you use with your head of people is absolutely around, reducing recruitment costs, reducing replacement of workers, reducing sickness leave, all of those kind of, and I think that's one of the really great things about health
Yes,
and safety professionals is we are really
exactly,
good at
exactly,
learning that kind of those different languages that we need to use. If I'm
absolutely,
talking to my CFO, I'm absolutely using return on investment and
exactly.
that kind
Yes,
of language. I'm talking to my
because
head of people that, I'm talking about recruitment and all of that kind of stuff. I'm
yes,
talking
yes,
about talking to my chief operating officer. I'm talking about productivity and reduction in absenteeism and presenteeism and all of
yes,
that.
yes, yes, yes,
We really learn how to adapt our language,
yes, exactly,
which is one of
exactly.
the
Like,
things that means that ESG is
absolutely,
really suited to us as well because we
absolutely,
can use that
absolutely.
language.
Absolutely. Like, for example, in our Qatar free zone case, one of the common things that I use, with the top management, because like a big KPI for them is, and on a big question that they need to answer to the top people, like, okay, how many investors have you attracted to Qatar free zone? What is
Mm,
the weight of those investors that you have
yeah.
attracted to the free zone in Qatar? And then I keep telling them that, what, one of the differentiator, one of the attraction that you can use for those investors is ESG, because
Mm,
now the deployments of funds internationally is dependent on the ESG performance. So if we
mm,
have a proper setup for an ESG, and if we have a proper kind of platform for ESG for those investors, that will attract them, that will make them take that kind of decision. And while I was doing that kind of talk, we have been approached by a couple of investors, and they said that, hey, okay, if you have an ESG in place, we are
yeah.
going to come, we will deploy
Yeah.
our stuff to you, to your
Mm,
field. So this is one of the differentiators. Awareness is coming the biggest thing, and yes,
mm,
awareness is really important when it comes to ocean sustainability. So the transformation, we are in a transformation journey. How do we
mm,
make that kind of transitioning or transformation into more kind of sustainable, more kind of resilient workplaces? So we need to make sure that we are taking that kind of journey of shifting the mindset, from compliance to foresight, from risk to resilience. We need to do that. We need to do our best, to make that kind of things together. So just as a concluding thing, change spreads through networks, through relationship and example, not just through rules and laws. And that makes you powerful in ways you might not even realize. So
mm,
we need to work together. We need to put our hands together to make that kind of change. The only way, I have seen lots of change that are happening just because people, they were together. They were having
mm.
that kind of passion, the commitment from inside, and they were putting things together, and that made the realization of that change that we should have. So with that, I would like to thank you for the time, and then if there is any, and by the way, this is the QR code for them for the slides. If anybody would like to download the slides.
Great. Thank you very much, Ahmed. And we've got some phenomenally challenging questions in the Q&A, which is brilliant. And one of them is obviously, can you share your contact details? And I'm sure the answer to that one is like
Yeah,
you're
I
you're
have.
on you are prevalent on LinkedIn and
Yeah,
absolutely you can find him on LinkedIn and connect there. So definitely.
I am on
Um,
LinkedIn. Yes, all
yes.
over. Yes.
Mm. I think I'd got a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, but I want to go straight into the really difficult one, which I think we could probably spend an entire webinar talking. We could spend an entire hour talking about. So Tracy has asked, What do you think the impact will be from the lack of engagement in climate change process by some of our world leaders? What can we actually achieve, or can we even achieve that much change without complete cooperation from all? Now, I've got
Yes.
my view, but
Yes.
let me hear yours before I chip in as well.
Okay. Okay. I will share my part. There are different ways to make a change. And there is a top-bottom approach which comes from those leaders that we are looking at today.
Mm,
But we should not underestimate our power.
mm,
If we adopt the bottom-top approach, we can push those leaders for that big change.
yeah.
Believe it or not, because at the end of the day, even when they we were discussing the issue of the US pulling out of Paris Agreement. Lots of people, lots of countries, they panicked. They said
Mm,
that this is a disaster for all of us. And I put an article on LinkedIn. I said, guys, do not panic.
mm,
We have the power to make the change happen. Even if the US pulled out of Paris Agreement, the US companies, they have not pulled out of Paris Agreement. The commitment at the company level is still there, because simply because those companies, those investors, those entities, they have their customers. We are
mm,
those customers. we
yeah,
can push we can push those companies, we can push those investors into the track that we want.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, if we boycott all the materials that are coming from X company because they are not in compliance, because they are following this pulling out of Paris Agreement, we can push them back. That tomorrow you will be out of the market. So
Do
this
you
is.
know,
Yes.
yeah, it reminds me, and bear with me, it reminds me of a scene in A Bug's Life, a brilliant little Disney film. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth a little watch. But the grasshoppers are evil, the ants are the goodies. Like it's one of, it's good versus evil. And the grasshoppers have this scene where they're like, well, it's only one ant that's kicking off and being a bit of an issue. So we've kind of ignored it because we didn't think it was a big deal. And the main grasshopper turns around and says, if the biggest problem that we have is that they outnumber us like 100 to 1. And the second they realize that, the second the power shifts. And actually, we have so much power to choose where we spend our money, choose who we give our money to, choose the
Exactly.
businesses that we
Exactly.
invest in,
Exactly.
and that's incredibly powerful.
Absolutely.
Um, we also have choices about, some of us are exceptionally fortunate and have choices about who we get to vote for and what
Exactly. And
and
and and,
what
and
and what principles and what things are actually really important to us, and what political parties will nudge the dial into the direction that we want to go.
yes. And
Um,
and Kelly, if we just take, like, for example, the health and safety part, if we
yeah.
take just the power of our kids, that, like, for example, now I know hundreds of parents, they change the way they drive, the way they do things
Mm,
because of their kids,
yeah.
because their kids every day they keep talking to them that, hey,
Influence.
okay, this is unsafe, why are you
Yeah.
driving like this, why are you not buckling, why are you not doing this
Yes.
kind of things.
Yeah.
So they feel ashamed at the end of the day that their kids, who are very young, they are telling them on what to do, what is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So there is
And
there is
that's
definitely a way to make a change.
there is, and I think that's, it's I did a webinar a few years ago about the power of influence versus the influence of power. And actually there's that element of it doesn't, you know, like just because you don't feel that you have a huge amount of power doesn't mean that you don't have a huge amount of influence. And incremental change is still change. And no, I know it's very difficult for us to be able to change policy and push governments back into agreements, etc. But if all of us just gave up, I think you had it on the slide, didn't you? It's that whole
Yeah.
idea of actually, if all of us went, I'm a tiny little bug,
Yes. Yes.
my impact isn't going to be a huge amount, but actually, if collectively we all did that, it's all of those incremental changes that make it really powerful.
Sure.
Um, so So if you could leave one key message for safety and sustainability professionals, what would it be?
Yes, it's very important and very crucial that we need to understand the holistic picture, the context, because
Mm,
at the end of the day, some of us, whenever we start practicing and doing our day-to-day things, we are just focusing on that kind of health and safety thing. So we need to make sure that we fully understand the interconnectivity between these different parts. We need to understand the holistic, what are the impacts, what is the interrelationship of sustainability, climate change, these issues that we are experiencing on day-to-day basis. We need to bring it we need to make sure that we fully understand and we are able to connect the dots because
mm,
nowadays even we have lots of things that are coming to us like technology, IoT, AI, all these kind of things are having a major kind of impact on the way that we do our OSH practice and our sustainability kind of things. So if we are able to connect the dots, if we are able to do more kind of a collaborative
mm,
work with a purpose. That is
mm,
really critical, and this is what makes a real kind of cultural change, and then will bring people together into
mm.
this journey.
So we've had two rather similar questions, so I'm gonna pull them both into one, if that's okay. I'm just conscious of the amount of time that we've got. Is how do we get leadership to move away from a tick box culture? And how and what and actually as health and safety professionals, as sustainability professionals, how how do we deal with um, how do we deal with management who don't seem to care, who have great policies on paper, but in actuality, their focus is just on productivity. They don't care about their workforce. Is that is that somewhere where we should be staying? Um, I've got my views, but I want to hear yours before
I love,
before I
I
launch in
love,
as well.
I love this question, and
Mm,
I have dealt with lots of leaders, and I have managed to make a shift, to make that kind of
yeah.
transition, their mindset. Simply, as I said, by answering that kind of question, what's in it for me? Those people
Mm,
who are sitting on the top, sometimes even they don't have time, to understand what is that kind of holistic kind of picture that we have.
mm,
Most of the time they are not involved into what we are doing, so they do
mm,
not understand that kind of message that we are sending it to them. So one of the ways is communication. We need to make sure
mm,
that we are communicating properly to those people. We need to make sure that we are making use of the time that they allot to us, because imagine a CEO, if as a health and safety manager or whatsoever in an organization, calculate that maybe 1 hour or something that you will get with the CEO on every month.
mm,
So you need to make sure that you are well prepared to make the
yeah.
maximum use of that 1 hour that will be allotted to
Mm,
you. And how to do that? Make things very, very simple so that they understand. You know,
yeah.
like for example, now I have all the data that I have into sustainability, and so I have plotted all these data into dashboards that are
Mm,
very, very simple to understand by the top management. So you go there, you will tell him that you see what this is what's happening, and this is what is the change that you can see, and all these kind of things. So immediately in 1 or 2 minutes, he will understand the whole picture, what is happening, and why he need to take that decision, for example, why he need to invest more into this. So we need
mm,
to make sure that we are doing our homework properly. We need to make sure that we are putting that kind of things in a language that they understand.
mm,
One of the big change that I managed to make in one of the big factories here is that when I joined this organization, the factory, they were investing very kind of minimum things into the firefighting system for that factory. You know,
mm,
Claiming, because when I went there and I said, why are you investing this? Why are you not investing into more kind of advanced firefighting system into this? And they said that the cost is very high on
mm,
the on investing in this. And then what I did, they said, okay, can you give me some time? You know what I did? I went back to who? I went back to the insurance company
mm.
and I called them. I said, Mr. Insurance, to my understanding that you insure based on a risk, right?
Yeah.
So what is the insurance premium that you currently have for this factory? and then they brought the insurance premium. I said, okay, what the insurance premium will change or will be if we invested more into this?
Yeah.
They said, okay, let us do our math. They took 2 days, they came back to me and they brought calculations. Believe it or not, when I did the calculations, the whole cost of that advanced firefighting system would have been recovered in 5 years from the difference in the pre-insurance premium.
Yeah.
And I took it to the management and they signed the bill immediately. They said, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So this is the language that those people understand, and this is the language that we need to take to talk to them.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it, is actually we know that we have this moral duty. We know that our leaders within our organization should absolutely have this moral duty, and they should care about the people that work for them. They don't always. So we do fundamentally have two choices. And my argument is always, because the question that Shabazz asks at the end is it worth staying in such an organization? And actually, my view is, as far as you can, that is where we are needed. Like, that is absolutely where we are needed. Yes, it's joyful to be able to work in an organization that that gets it. But actually our work is in the companies that don't get it. But that is without burning yourself out, without creating, you've got to look after yourself, and you cannot take the weight of that on. And there are probably lots and lots of tools within things like the Catch the Wave program that IOSH has pulled together, managing sustainability, because I'd be told off if it didn't get that one in again. And as health and safety professionals, we focus an awful lot on significant injuries and fatality causes. We've spent a long time focusing on physical safety, but there is a recognition that extreme weather impacts all of us and all of our workers' health and their safety at work. So wrapping it, bringing in ESG, bringing in social sustainability as an integral part of how we continue to manage occupational safety and health is really, really important. And also, we have the framework, don't we? We understand about risk management. We understand about how to influence our leaders in a way that nudges the dial to make sure that everybody gets to go home at the end of every day. So I've got like a minute left. So thank you so much, Ahmed, for your time. We could absolutely carry on talking about this for ages. Thank you to everybody for attending this session. Any value that you have gained from it can be used as part of your CPD portfolio. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you, Ahmed. And we will see you all soon. Look after yourselves and each other.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.